All right, let's get into a topic that's often massively misunderstood and frankly pretty dangerous if you get it wrong: professional tire safety. We're going way beyond the basics here to break down the 5 absolute core principles every pro has to live by. We're talking about the investigation, setting up a safe zone, diagnosis, the final check, and yeah, even the paperwork. So let's dive right in. Okay, so let me ask you something. When you think about the dangers of working with tires, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Throwing your back out, lifting a heavy wheel? Maybe forgetting to tighten the lug nuts? And yeah, those are definitely real risks, but the single most life-threatening moment, it's something else entirely. And there you have it. The single most dangerous part of the job is inflation. See, a tire isn't just a piece of rubber, it's a pressure vessel. And if that bead, the inner edge that's supposed to seal against the wheel, doesn't seat just right and you just keep pumping in air, the explosion that follows has enough force to be absolutely fatal. This isn't a small mistake we're talking about. This is a life or death moment, and that's why our very first principle starts long before you ever pick up a tool. Which brings us perfectly to our first chapter, the investigation. Every single professional tire job begins not with a wrench or an impact gun, but with your eyes and your brain. You have to read the tire's code to know exactly what you're dealing with. First things first, you've got to know the tire's basic construction. Is it a radial ply or a bias ply? They look similar, but inside they're totally different. In a radial tire, the cord plies run straight across, bead to bead. In a bias ply, they run diagonally, crisscrossing each other. Now that might sound technical, but it dramatically changes how the tire handles, how it wears, how it deals with heat. Putting the wrong type on a vehicle can seriously mess with its stability and safety. So how do you know? Well, all this crucial info is literally written right there on the sidewall in a series of codes. You got to think of these markings as the tire's instruction manual. They're non-negotiable specs that tell you everything from the maximum weight it can carry to its top safe speed. Ignoring them is like guessing the dosage on a bottle of medicine. You just don't do it. And this table here breaks it down beautifully. So let's look at this example. P215/65R1595H. Okay, 215 is the width, 65 is the height as a percentage of the width, R tells you it's a radial, and 15 is the wheel diameter in inches. But the next two? These are absolutely critical for safety. 95 is the load index, that's the max weight it can handle, and H is the speed rating. You have to match these to what the car manufacturer recommends. There are no exceptions. It's a hard and fast rule. So once you've done your investigation and you know what tire you're working with, you move on to Principle 2, creating the safe zone. This is all about making sure your workspace, your body, and your tools are all ready to get the job done safely and correctly. And this really comes down to basic but essential habits. Using the right lifting techniques so you don't injure yourself. Doing pre-use checks on every single piece of equipment to make sure it's working right. And hey, if you find something that's broken, it gets tagged and taken out of service immediately. No excuses. It even includes managing things like rubber dust, which you really don't want to be breathing in. It's all part of being a pro. Which brings us back to the most critical procedure of all, safe inflation. Let's walk through this. 1. Always use an inflation cage and make sure it's in good shape. 2. Set the air regulator to the manufacturer's specified pressure, never a single PSI more. 3. Inflate in short, controlled bursts. You're listening for the 2 distinct pops of the bead seating. And 4, and this is so important, stand clear of the trajectory path. Never ever lean over the tire while you're inflating it. Now, beyond your own personal safety, mastering your equipment is also about your professional credibility. I mean, a modern alloy wheel can cost hundreds, even thousands of dollars. Using the wrong clamp settings or just being sloppy with the bead breaker is the quickest way to gouge and completely ruin a customer's wheel. Knowing your equipment inside and out protects their property and, just as importantly, your reputation. Okay, so the tire is safely off the wheel. Now we come to Principle 3, the diagnosis. This is the moment of truth. This is where a technician's expertise really shines, making that critical call. Can this tire be safely repaired, or does it absolutely need to be replaced? And that decision has to be based on a systematic inspection. You can't just glance at it. First, you check the tread for its depth and look for any punctures. Then, you inspect every inch of the sidewall. You're looking for cuts, scrapes, or any bulges. Those are huge red flags. Then, you check the bead for any tears or damage from when it was removed. And finally, you have to inspect the inside liner for hidden damage. You do all 4 every single time. This matrix right here makes that decision crystal clear. It is a simple go, no-go. Got a small puncture, less than 6 millimeters, right in the central tread area? That's usually repairable, a go. But any damage to the sidewall? That's an automatic no-go. A puncture in the shoulder area where the tire flexes the most? No-go. Any damage at all to that bead that could stop it from getting a perfect seal? Absolutely a no-go. Trying to repair a tire that's in that requires replacement column is just creating a massive, massive risk for whoever drives that car. All right, the tire has been diagnosed, repaired, or replaced, and it's ready to go back on. Now we're at our fourth principle, the final check. This isn't just about finishing up. Think of this as the ultimate quality gate that ensures everything, and I mean everything, has been done safely and correctly. This final checklist is completely non-negotiable. After you mount and inflate it, you visually inspect the bead on both sides of the tire to confirm it's seated perfectly and evenly all the way around. Then you do one last pressure check and balance the wheel. And finally, we hit our fifth principle, documentation. You record every single thing you did on the job card. The job is not done until the paperwork is done. And here is exactly why that final visual check is so critical. A bead that's only partially seated might actually hold air just fine sitting in the workshop. But you get that car out on the highway, with the heat and the forces of driving at speed, it can fail and fail catastrophically. That last careful look you take is the final line of defense against a blowout on the road. So, you see, these 5 principles, investigation, the safe zone, proper diagnosis, the final check, and complete documentation, they aren't just a list of steps. They are the absolute foundation of your professional credibility and your commitment to keeping everybody safe out there on the road. Which really leaves us with one last question to think about. The lug nuts are torqued to spec, the car is back on the ground, but is your job really done? After everything we've just talked about, I think the answer is pretty clear. Not until every single one of these principles has been followed, from the very start to the very end.